Some of the devotees that are with us now were with us earlier today, but many of you were not. So this is part 2. And part 1 was the same title, Sri Krsna Caitanya's Compassion. And today's talk is a continuation of yesterday's talk, just on, in general, what is compassion? And how can we, well, the different topics. What does compassion look like? What are some of the things that make up compassion? We discussed compassion is something that you feel. Compassion is something that you do. And compassion is something that you recognize in others. So there's a cognitive and affective and a motivation. Pretty dramatic entrance. He's okay. Mom's worried that your son's going to be okay. And he's okay. Very resilient young man. He didn't hit his head, at least. He's got a hard head. Okay. So we spoke about yesterday evening. We spoke about what is compassion in general. Compassion is a quality of the mode of goodness. So there's compassion in the mode of goodness. And when the mode of goodness becomes free from a mix of ignorance and passion, then it's Shuddha Sattva, or transcendental quality of compassion. So what is that, and how can one approach that? How can one move from where we are to where we want to be? And it naturally leads to Lord Chaitanya, because Lord Chaitanya is the primary example, perfect example of compassion. We have a prana mantra that we recite. It's on the screen now, if you can say it with me. But the first line, Maha Vadanyaya. So during the midday session, we expanded on meaning of Vadanyaya, merciful or munificent, as like an extreme case of compassion. So let's say together, Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Caitanya Namne Gora Tvishe Namaha. So he is considered the Mahavadanyaya, the most merciful, or sometimes Prabhupada was translated as munificent, which is a nice word, form of the Lord, because Krishna Prema Pradaya, he gives freely Krishna Prema. Now, Krishna Prema is the mature fruit of bhakti. There's some devotees in India. They're learning. They live in a remote place, and so from time to time they communicate with questions. And they had a nice question from Bhagavad Gita. There's this nice word, sthita pragya. Any of you Bhagavad Gita scholars, you know what the meaning of sthita pragya is? What's sthita pragya mean? Someone want to volunteer? The meaning, Bhagavad Gita. It's a book? Yeah, that's Bhagavad Gita. But what's sthita pragya mean? Not sure. No, try again. You were going to say? Stita Pragya. In Bhagavad Gita, Prabhupada explains pragya is another word for consciousness. And stita means steady, or situated in steadiness, where consciousness is steady. So it means there's stage of consciousness is not so steady. Unsteady, anishtita, and then nishtha or stita pragya. Consciousness is steady, determination is steady. Even more specifically, despite favorable, unfavorable circumstances, one's determination remained fixed. One can't be dissuaded from taking shelter of Krishna because of Stita Pragya. It's a mature stage of bhakti. And in that mature stage of bhakti, what's the mature stage of bhakti? It's Krishna Prema. So the verse, this nice verse on the screen here, is that explaining Krishna Caitanya Namane, known by Krishna Caitanya, he's Krishna himself. Krishna himself, known by the name Krishna Caitanya, Gora Tvishe, but unlike Krishna, who is blackish, he's Gora, he's golden in complexion. Or Tvishe, his luster, his golden luster. And his munificence, or his magnanimous nature, as he freely gives Krishna Prema. The fruit, the mature fruit of Krishna Prema. Here's the translation. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna Chaitanya, who is more magnanimous than any avatar, even Krishna himself, because he is bestowing freely what no one else has ever given, pure love of Krishna. Now Krishna makes a promise, we all know, in Bhagavad Gita, and he keeps his promise. Nice try. Sarvadharmam parityaja mamekam sharanam vraja aham tvam sarva papebhyo mokshayashami masuchaha. So Krishna makes a request or a condition that you take shelter of him, surrender unto him. And that means the negative, abandoning all other shelters. Even exalted ones, all other shelters are subordinate to this one principal shelter, Mam Ekam Sharana. Now Lord Chaitanya is so merciful, he didn't require that. And not only he didn't require that, but for those who are the recipients of his mercy, he gave Krishna Prema. Unqualified persons, no problem. So we spoke a little bit in the midday session today about Jai and Jagai, Madhai. Does anyone here not know about Jagai Madhai? Any adults or young people? Jagai Madhai. Okay. They're what? Troublemakers. They're really bad guys. Do you know about them? You know some bad guys? You know the whole story, but do you know some bad guys? In your life, have you encountered some bad guys? Okay, we have some vocal youth in the audience here. So the nature of Jagai and Madhai was they were like super bad. They were robbers, they were drunkards, they were women hunters, they were, they would curse and they would pull each other's hair and they would beat up on other people. They're just like wild, drunken fellows. No, shh. Let's make a rule. This young boy, you speak when I call on you. And if I don't call on you, you know what to do, right? Hold it until I call on you. That's what you do. Thank you. Although they were so bad, the agent, the instrument of Lord Chaitanya's mercy was Lord Nityananda, and because of his mercy, they were delivered. They not only became clean instead of wild, they became great devotees. Not only became great devotees, but they became very humble. And not only became very humble, but the rest of their life after they were rescued was two things. They would constantly chant the holy name, and they were always engaged in service to the Vaishnavas. Their specific service they did was they built a bathing ghat, like a set of stairs going down from the shore of the Mother Ganges to the Ganges, and they stood on either side of those little stairway ghat going into the Ganges with folded palms, begged the residents of Navadvip to forgive them for all of their bad behavior and to accept them, forgive them, and accept them as Vaishnavas. So they served the Vaishnavas. They became very, very different, transformed, because they had been given Krishna Prema. They were experiencing Krishna Prema from that degraded position to Krishna Prema. And so Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, is the most magnanimous of all the avatars of the Lord, and we offer our obeisances to him. Now, in the morning session, we spent some time discussing Lord Chaitanya's sannyas. We discussed the early part of his life, but one of the things that we discussed when he took sannyas was he made a transcendental arrangement so that he could enter the temple of Jagannath without the group of others that were traveling with him. Here's how he made the transcendental arrangement. After he accepted sannyas, he was traveling to Jagannath Puri at the request of his mother to go to Puri instead of to Vrindavan. And as he was traveling to Puri, he was heading in a southerly direction. Many things happened. He passed through Bhubaneswar. And then after Bhubaneswar, there's this Naratala Bridge. There's a bridge of 26 arches. It's a celebrated place. It's still there. And just before that, there was a temple of Lord Shiva. He wanted to pay his respects to Lord Shiva in a temple along the side of a river that was running along the path. And so he gave his danda to Lord Nityananda and said, "While I cross the river, you hold my danda, and I want to pay my respects to Lord Shiva." So when he went, we discussed this. This is repeat. When he went to visit and pay his respects to Lord Shiva's temple, Lord Nityananda had a little conversation with Lord Chaitanya's danda, scolding the danda. "Who do you think you are? My Lord is the supreme person, and he doesn't need to undergo any austerities or to have to do anything. He's supremely independent, and you think you have to be carried by him? What audacity." And he took the danda and broke it in 3 pieces. And he threw the 3 pieces in the river. So there. So much for you, danda. You got your back right to the screen. There's the screen. Thank you. So when Lord Chaitanya came back, he was in ecstasy, having chanted and danced before the temple of Lord Shiva, and he asked Nityananda for his danda. And Nityananda said, "Oh, you were in a mood of ecstasy and you fell on the danda. The danda broke in 3 places, so I threw it in the river." He told a lie. And Lord Chaitanya scolded him. It's a pastime. Lord Chaitanya scolded him and said, "What kind of companion are you? The one remaining item I have in the world is my possession, is my danda. You can't manage my danda? I don't want to travel with you anymore." So you 3, it was Gadadhar Pandit, Lord Nityananda, and one other person who traveled together. You 3 go ahead and I'll stay. You go take darshan of Lord Jagannath, I'll come later. Or I'll go and you stay. Which one? "Oh, no. You go and we'll stay." It was a Leela. And the Leela was purposeful. The Leela was so that he could enter the Jagannath temple and have a pastime with Lord Jagannath. And in that ecstasy of seeing Lord Jagannath, he fainted in ecstasy right in the temple room floor, as the painting is showing. And the guards saw this young sannyasi lying on the temple room floor. They thought, "What's this?" So they were prepared to just toss him out of the temple, bodily pick him up and toss him out of the temple. The painting shows, here's Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was the chief priest of the king. King Prataparudra was the king of Puri, and more than Puri, the whole large tract of land. And he came in just at the right time. He saw the guards crowded around this fainted in ecstasy sannyasi, and as you see his body language, he said, no, don't toss him out. Pick him up, carry him to my home, I'll take care of him. So that's what happened, because he's Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. He's vastly learned, and everybody has great respect, so whatever he says, they're ready to do. They brought him to his home, and we heard this. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, the super scholar, wanted to examine to see if he was faking it. Because when somebody's in trance, their life air is suspended. So what he did was he took some fine strands of cotton from a cotton ball, held those strands of cotton before his nose to see if there was a movement of air. Because his mouth was closed, there's something coming and going from his nose. And there was no movement. It was a real trance of ecstasy. So that was step 1. And then step 2 was he wanted to do what he could do to bring him out of that state of trance, but he didn't know what to do. It didn't work. And so the next painting shows, shortly thereafter, the associates of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to the Jagannath temple. They heard about what happened, the sannyasi that fell on the ground. He was taken to Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya's house. So there they went to Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya's house. And Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya told them he didn't know how to bring him back to external consciousness. They said, we know how to. They just had loud kirtan. And then Lord Chaitanya opened his eyes. And everything was like Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was greatly relieved. And then they had many discussions, and one of the topics was Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya said, you're so young, your beauty is astounding, and how is a young sannyasi like you going to maintain his sannyas vows without being very strongly fixed in Vedanta Sutra, transcendental knowledge. So if you like, I'm a Mr. Super Scholar. I have many sannyasi students, although Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was a grahastha. He was vastly, vastly, vastly learned. So he was protecting many sannyasis by giving them transcendental knowledge. So Lord Chaitanya was asked, if you'd like, I can teach you Vedanta Sutra. And Lord Chaitanya very meekly said, oh, that would be very kind of you. Now, he's the personality of God who doesn't need instructions in Vedanta Sutra. But he didn't say that. So he sat for 7 days listening to Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, morning till evening, non-stop. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, very skilled, very learned, very gifted, explaining Vedanta Sutra. However, Lord Chaitanya didn't respond. As we see, just looking effulgent, but he didn't respond, didn't say anything. So on the 8th morning, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya asked Lord Chaitanya, you don't say anything. I don't know if you're understanding or not understanding. Could you please respond? And Lord Chaitanya said, I understand the meaning of Vedanta Sutra very well. However, the more you speak, the more you're covering the meaning of Vedanta Sutra. Oh, really? Then if you understand Vedanta Sutra, then you please offer your explanation. And so Lord Chaitanya, being prompted by Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, offered his explanation to Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya on the meaning of Vedanta Sutra. As you know, because you're all learned devotees, Srimad Bhagavatam is Vyasadev's commentary on Vedanta Sutra. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu certainly knew Srimad Bhagavatam, but he explained not just chapter and verse from Srimad Bhagavatam, he explained the concepts within Srimad Bhagavatam, within Vedanta Sutra. And his explanations were so clear and so profound and so unique, at least from what Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya had been trained in, because he had been trained in the teachings of Shankaracharya and how Shankaracharya understands Vedanta Sutra, an impersonal teaching. So when he heard, because he's super scholar, he understood this isn't just a learned Brahmin sannyasi. You're the personality of Godhead. And then Lord Chaitanya smiled, and there's a couple of paintings. This is what we saw in the earlier session. According to Chaitanya Charitamrita, he showed these two forms. Behind him, Krishna and Narayana. So there's three forms of the personality of Godhead simultaneously being manifest by Lord Chaitanya. And needless to say, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was overwhelmed. You see, he's offering his obeisances flat on the ground. Very elderly, very learned, scholarly devotee. Because before he wasn't a devotee, but now he's becoming a devotee through Lord Chaitanya's association, which is part of his munificence. He freely bestowed what no other incarnation has ever offered before, Krishna Prema. But he did it through the back door, in this case. It was an inquiry. So in addition, in Chaitanya Bhagavat, another biography, it describes that he showed Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya the six-armed form, one form with 6 arms, Sadbhuj, it's called. So 2 arms, Danda and Kamandalu, 2 arms, Krishna holding flute, 2 arms, Lord Ramachandra with bow and arrow. Another nice painting of the same. And in the house of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, which still exists in Puri, there's this Murti bas relief murti that's being worshipped of the Sadbhuj form that Lord Chaitanya showed to Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. Because he's super scholar, immediately, instantly, spontaneously, he composed 100 verses in glorification of Lord Chaitanya, because he not only realized who he was, not only saw these forms, but he wants now, being the scholar that he is, to glorify. So there's 2 verses. This slide is where we ended midday. All this is review. Vairagya Vidya Nija Bhakti Yoga Shikshartam Ekam Purushak Purana Shri Krishna Caitanya Surira Dhari Kripambhuti Tam Aham Prapadye. Yes, Tam Aham Prapadye. So the teaching, this is a celebrated verse from Chaitanya Charitamrita. We'll go through it a little bit slowly. Vairagya Vidya, knowledge and detachment. Vairagya Vidya, or detachment to knowledge. Nija Bhakti Yoga. Nija means his own. Bhakti Yoga, devotional service. Shikshartam, he gave the teachings through the medium of devotional service how to achieve the fullness of knowledge and detachment through the medium of Bhakti Yoga. Eka Purushak Purana, he is the singular, supreme, most Purusha, Parama Purusha, the oldest supreme person. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Sharira Dhari, he is manifesting this form of Shri Krishna Chaitanya. And Kripambhuti, which is another way of saying the same thing, which is our topic for this evening's discussion. Kripa, there are different words for the words that mean compassion. And Kripa is one of those words, mercy or compassion. And Ambhuti means he's an ocean of mercy. Kripambhuti, yastamaham prapadye. So I, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, prapadye, I take shelter of him. Here's the translation from Chaitanya Charitamrita. Let me take shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, who has descended in the form of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to teach us 3 things: real knowledge, his devotional service, and detachment from whatever does not foster Krishna consciousness. He has descended because he is an ocean of transcendental mercy. Let me surrender unto his lotus feet. That was one of the 100 verses. And here's another one of the 100 verses. Now, both these verses appear in Chaitanya Charitamrita. The principle of transcendental devotional service having been lost, Sri Krishna Chaitanya has appeared to deliver again the process of devotion. He is so kind that he is distributing love of Krishna. Everyone should be attracted more and more to his lotus feet as humming bees are attracted to a lotus flower. And the other 98 verses, they're not recorded anywhere, but these 2 somehow made their way into Chaitanya Charitamrita. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, being the chief priest of the king, he made a request of the king. You're the king. Can you consider a suitable place for Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to reside so he can reside with us here in Jagannath Puri? So the king decided, yes, I can think of the exact place. There's a place of Kashi Mishra. Kashi Mishra was a pujari that worshipped the deities of King Prataparudra. So in the house of Kashi Mishra, the house of Kashi Mishra is not just like a house like this. It's like a big compound with walls and, many families living within the compound. So there's a very quiet room, quiet place called Gambhira. And I'll ask Kashi Mishra if he can supply that place for Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to stay. So that arrangement was made. And Lord Chaitanya then made his headquarters in Puri for some time. And wonderful, wonderful exchanges with the devotees in Puri. But after some time, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu made an excuse. Because he's omniscient, he knew, but he pretended he didn't know. He wanted to look for his brother. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had an elder brother named Vishwarup. And Vishwarup, like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Nimai Pandit when he was young, would hear Srimad Bhagavatam from Advaita Acharya regularly. And he became so inspired hearing Srimad Bhagavatam that as a young man, he also took sannyas and left home. So he said to everybody in Puri, I want to go look for my brother. He went to somewhere in South India. With your permission, I'd like to go find him. See if I can find him. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, when the king agreed, everyone agreed. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya made a request. One person I want you to meet. In all of South India, there was one person who I thought at the time, before I met you, I thought he was a sentimentalist. But now, after meeting you, I can understand he's not a sentimentalist. He's a very elevated Vaishnav. His name is Ramananda Raya. Under the king, he's the governor of Chennai, then Madras. And if it's all possible, please meet him. You'll be very happy to meet him. Now, many of you know, I'll just remind of you, if you've forgotten, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was Krishna himself in the mood of Radharani, the topmost devotee of Krishna. So his complexion was golden, like Radharani, and his mood was like Radharani's mood, although he's Krishna himself. Because Lord Chaitanya appeared, one of his principal reasons was to experience the love that Radha has for him. He, Krishna, is the object of her love, and the object could not experience the love of Radha without being the subject, experiencing love of the object. So he took the position of Radha. And as you know, there are many gopi assistants, thousands and millions of gopi assistants. And amongst them, there's 8 principal gopis. And amongst the 8 principal gopis, there's 2 primary gopis, or assistants of Radharani. And one of them is Vishakha, and the other is Lalita. Lalita and Vishakha. So Ramananda Raya in Krishna Lila is Vishakha. So Lord Chaitanya, we're going to discuss it shortly, but Lord Chaitanya is sent on a mission, a request. Please meet Ramananda Raya. You'll be very happy. You'll appreciate his quality. And Ramananda Raya was fantastic. So he's now heading for a 2-year travel. So he took sannyas when he was 24, towards the end of his 24th year. So now he's just in his early 25, traveling for 2 years in South India. And one of the behaviors that he did, because he had traveled with just one assistant, and he was just with his arms raised, walking along the path, sing Krishna's name. It's very nice. And as he would sing Krishna's name, people would come from he was giving Krishna prema to people that didn't know anything about anything. I mean, they had some character, they had some culture, but they really didn't know love for Krishna. But his mood was so ecstatic that as he was walking along the road, hundreds and hundreds of people would follow, experience Krishna Prema just from being with him and hearing his chanting and dancing and so forth. And brahmanas would come, and children would come, and ladies would come and offer things to him, and his gift was Krishna Prema. He came to a certain village, and he found that in this village there was a very poor man that was a leper. And the leper, he took compassion upon the leper. And there's a lengthy whole chapter dedicated to him. Vasudeva the leper. Vasudeva Amrita Prada. He gave Amrita or nectar to Vasudeva the leper. And the leper, because he was a leper, he kept his distance. But from Lord Chaitanya, he didn't want his leprosy to contact anybody else, so he was kind of a recluse, just kept to himself. Lord Chaitanya saw him, and just by seeing him, it drew his compassion. And Lord Chaitanya then walked up to him, and in the mood of love of God, he embraced him. And as he embraced him, there was a miracle cure. His leprosy was completely cured. His body became very normal and golden in complexion, like Lord Chaitanya. And he was so grateful. And Lord Chaitanya just made one request. Chant the holy name and keep yourself always in pure consciousness. No discussion about anything, you contracted leprosy because of sinful deeds. Don't commit further sinful deeds. He didn't make that demand of him because he was already in the stage of Krishna Prema, being cured and rescued by him. So he was, who can imagine how much gratitude he was feeling. And in a further journey, that's chapter 9 of Madhya Lila, there were some Buddhists, and they understood that Lord Chaitanya wasn't a Buddhist, that he's a sannyasi, and he was giving teachings of love for Krishna. And so they were envious of how much attraction he was drawing from the populace. So they decided to pull a trick. And the trick that they pulled was they made some contaminated food that, Vaishnavas would not touch. And they brought it, and they made a special feast for you. So the special feast was brought on a big platter. And as the platter was brought to Lord Chaitanya, this giant bird, doesn't say what type of bird, came swooping down, grabbed the platter from the man that were trying to give it to Lord Chaitanya and flew away with the platter. The platter fell and hit the chief priest, Buddhist priest, right in the head. Bonk. And he was knocked out. They understood that, this is not an ordinary person, not just a coincidence that this just happened. They explained their intention. They offered profuse apology, and Lord Chaitanya gave them transcendental teachings. And they were the recipients of his mercy also. Then further chapter in the course of his travels in South India, this is depicting Lord Chaitanya meets Ramananda Raya. Now over on the right side, that's Lord Chaitanya and his assistant, Balabhadra Bhattacharya, one brahmachari assistant. And on the left side, that's the king, the governor of his area, with his ministers and priests and other people. And as they were traveling, there was kind of like a big fanfare because he's a very important person. And when he saw Lord Chaitanya, and when Lord Chaitanya saw him, Their hearts melted because they're actually eternal associates. And so here in the painting, Lord Chaitanya embraced him so strongly and warmly and affectionately that the ministers were puzzled. What's going on here? Who's this person? And so Lord Chaitanya said, this isn't the right circumstance for us to have a discussion. Let's meet later in the evening. So in a more secluded place, they met. And Lord Chaitanya took the role, although he's a sannyasi, he took the role as one inquiring, asking Ramananda Raya for answers to his questions. And the conversation started, down here, and then it went up there, and then it went up there, and then it went up there, and went to higher and higher and higher and higher and higher stages of transcendental instruction. And Ramananda Raya was saying, I don't know these topics, but I'm speaking the answers to your questions. You're making me speak. You're like, I'm a puppet, and you're having me speak. And, it's very elevated, if you want to read some elevated topics, and in the topic of rasa specifically, and the stages of rasa amongst Krishna and the gopis, and Krishna and Radha, and so on and so on. Very elevated. These fundamental teachings find their way also in Rupa Goswami's writings, because they're the teachings of Lord Chaitanya, who gave them in detail to Rupa Goswami, who wrote them down. And it made its way into Chaitanya Charitamrita, because the author of Chaitanya Charitamrita, Krishnadas Kaviraj, had two main resources for his writing of Chaitanya Charitamrita. The two main resources were the notes, or the diary of Swarup Damodar, the two main, that's like Lalita and Vishaka. So Vishaka, in Krishna's Leela, is Ramananda Raya in Gaura Leela. And Lalita, in Krishna Leela, is Swarup Damodar. So Swarup Damodar was the personal secretary of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu during the time he stayed in Puri. And he kept notes, a diary, on what events transpired between himself and Lord Chaitanya, between Lord Chaitanya and others, and giving the inner meanings of those. So when he compiled Chaitanya Charitamrita, Krishnadas Kaviraj had those notes. So this discussion with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Ramananda Raya was in his notes, or in his diary. And in the course of his exchange with Ramananda Raya, very similar, different, but very similar to his talks with Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, Ramananda Raya came to the realization also, you're not just a sannyasi, you're the personality of Godhead, you're Krishna himself. And then the painting shows that he showed, yes, in this case, he showed a form of Krishna and Radharani. There's a nice verse. Some of you like nice verses. It's a nice verse from Chaitanya Charitamrita that says, essentially, that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Krishna himself in the mood of Radha, and eternally these two, Radha and Krishna, are manifest in two forms, although it's one entity. Energy and energetic is one energy, one entity. Radha Krishna Pranaya Vikriti Ladini Shakti Asmat Ekatmanav Api Bhuvi Pura Deha Beda, the two forms, eternally manifest. Radha and Krishna are eternally manifest as two forms, although Ekatmanav Api Bhuvi, they're one entity, eternally manifest in two forms, as the painting shows Radha Krishna. And when those two forms become one form, Krishna himself in the mood of Radha, that's Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So Ramananda Raya was overwhelmed, and Lord Chaitanya requested after some time, please come and make your residence in Puri. I want to be in your association always. So that happened. Ramananda Raya and Swarup Damodar were constant companions with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in Jagannath Puri. There's other events, but because of time and circumstance, Lord Chaitanya eventually made it back to Puri. He stayed for some time, gave his association to the devotees in Puri, and then he had a desire to go to Vrindavan. So in going to Vrindavan, he passed through the forest of Jharikand. And as he passed through the forest of Jharikand, he was chanting and dancing in ecstasy and engaging the wild animals and birds and everyone in ecstatic love. Krishna Prema Pradayate, although they're not even in human species, but they became moved by his transcendental ecstasy. And as he continued in his travel during this period of time in history, the Muslim armies had invaded from the north, and they had conquered the other kings and other rulers, and so was Muslim rule in a good part of northern India. So one of the places that he passed was a place where there were some soldiers, Pathan soldiers, that on his way to Sri Vrindavan. And as you see, there's some soldiers that they see Chaitanya Mahaprabhu practically passed out in a swoon of ecstasy of love of God underneath a tree. So they didn't know what to make of it. And because Lord Chaitanya was traveling with one assistant, Balabhadra Bhattacharya, he said he has some disease. Sometimes he has a fit, like epilepsy or something, and so just wait a while and he'll come back. And they're like checking him out. And when he came to external consciousness, seeing the Muslim soldiers, his mood didn't change. He was respectful to them, but they could understand, same, he's not an ordinary person, and they became spiritually enlivened by his association. And after this event came his meeting with Sanatana Goswami. I'm not telling everything of the whole history, but here it shows Sanatana Goswami with a very nice blanket over his shoulder. Mercifully, Lord Chaitanya kept glancing at his blanket or his chadar, and Sarvabhauma, Sanatana Goswami said he understood, he didn't approve of it. I'm taking a platform of renunciation and I'm wearing some expensive garment. It's a long story. To make a short story from a long story, he gave his quilt or chadar or upper garment to a mendicant by the side of the river in exchange that his garment for his torn quilt. The mendicant thought, stop teasing me. This isn't nice. You appear to be a gentleman. Don't tease me like this. No. I want to exchange this nice garment for your torn quilt. And when he came back, Lord Chaitanya was very appreciative. When you take the position of renunciation, like you have done, you renounced your service to Nawab Hussain Shah, then you should not have comforts. You should live very simply. So here's another nice painting. Sanatana Goswami is taking shelter of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. One of his principal followers was Sanatana Goswami, and here he is offering obeisances at his lotus feet, asking questions. And the questions he wanted to know, 2 questions. Who am I? And why must I suffer? What is it that I don't want to suffer? People don't want to suffer. Why is it that people have to suffer? Why? What's the reason behind it? I mean, he's a learned person. He knows. He just wants to hear Chaitanya Mahaprabhu give definitive answer. So there's a nice discussion in Chaitanya Charitamrita. He spends some time, nearly a month, with Sanatana Goswami, giving him transcendental teachings, and tells Sanatana Goswami, go to Vrindavan. After some time, you can join me. I'll be back in Puri. And in Varanasi, there is some criticism on his way back to Puri from Vrindavan by some local sannyasis, specifically Shankara followers, specifically Prakashananda Saraswati and his 1,000 sannyas followers were criticizing Lord Chaitanya. He's taken sannyas in our line, but look at him. He's carrying out singing and dancing with ordinary people. These aren't behaviors of a sannyasi. Why doesn't he come and join us and study Vedanta? Do what sannyasis are supposed to do. Why does he do this? So they were criticizing. Long story short, he met with them, and he showed his position of humility by, as you can see right at the corner of his right knee there, there's the bathing place where you bathe your foot, the foot bath, before entering into the hall. So he bathed his feet before entering into the hall, but he didn't enter into the hall. He sat down by the dirty foot bath. So Prakashananda Saraswati saw him and is encouraging him to come. And Lord Chaitanya is saying, I'm not fit to be in your assembly. You're all very qualified and I'm not so qualified. Anyway, he's speaking in humble terms. And then they had some discussions. Why do you do like this? Bluntly, why do you carry on singing, dancing like this? Why don't you come and associate with us? So he expressed his humility, but then he also gave teachings about chanting, and the importance of chanting, and the power of chanting, and the effect of chanting. And in due course of time, through their philosophical discussions, as happened to Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, Prakashananda Saraswati, the leader of all the Mayavadi sannyasis, became persuaded and influenced. Back to for those of you that came a little later, there's a pranam mantra that we recite in honor of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, that he's Mahavadanyaya. He's the most merciful or munificent or magnanimous of all the avatars, because he freely gives Krishna prema. So he is in the process of giving Krishna prema even to this sannyasi who was criticizing him. He didn't fault him for criticizing. He just wanted to give him mercy. And so he did. There's details and details of how that transpired. The king, this is a painting of the king of Orissa. Prataparudra was the king's name. And Prataparudra wanted to get the association of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was saying no, because he's a worldly man, and I don't associate with worldly people. And this thing, that thing, the other thing, the other thing. Finally, many challenges were put up by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Finally, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya made a recommendation. As you see in the background of this painting, there's the dome of the Jagannath cart. So at the time of Rath Yatra, the cart carries Jagannath from the Jagannath temple to the Gundicha temple along the path of the Grand Road. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was accustomed to chanting and dancing in ecstasy. And halfway along the way, he stops and takes some rest in the Jagannath Ballam Gardens. It's still there. That place is still there. Very nice place. And he'll take some rest. So while he's taking some rest, you can recite some verses from the 10th Canto Bhagavatam. He trained him and what those verses are and how to recite them and so forth. And so the king, when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was resting, he came, massaged his legs, and because legs and feet may have been tired from all that dancing, and recited Bhagavatam verses. And Lord Chaitanya made as if he didn't know who this was. Who is this? You're the most kind, you're the most merciful. Who are you? I'm your servant. And Lord Chaitanya embraced him. Lord Chaitanya gave his mercy even to one who was by social circumstance, avoiding. Many things happened. He said, send his son, because the son is representative of the father. So the son was sent, and Lord Chaitanya embraced his son. The son was filled with ecstasy. The son went back and embraced his father. The father was filled with ecstasy. But he still wanted to meet with Lord Chaitanya. These are just some of the examples. Here's another nice example in Chaitanya Charitamrita. Lord Chaitanya, being in his mood of humility, he would not approach the altar close range. He would stand towards the back by the Garuda Stamba. So what this is meant to be is a tall column. On top is a murti of Garuda who's having darshan of Jagannath. And Lord Chaitanya would stand behind that Garuda Stamba. And one day, an old lady climbed up on his back and standing on his shoulders to see above the crowd, wanted to see the deity of Lord Jagannath. And as you see on the right side, that's his assistant, Balabhadra Bhattacharya, saying, get down, what are you doing? And Lord Chaitanya was in such ecstasy, he wasn't even noticing what she was doing. When Balabhadra Bhattacharya spoke like this, he said, no, if only I had the kind of enthusiasm and eagerness to have darshan of the personality of Godhead that she has, my life would become perfect. So don't disturb her. And then she understood what she was doing because she had lost it, and she was very embarrassed and she came down. And giving his mercy very freely to one and all. One of the close associates of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is pictured here. His name is Jagatananda. Jagatananda was a brahmachari who wanted to be like Lord Chaitanya, very renounced. But he liked to give nice things to Lord Chaitanya. So one of the things that he did was, with his own hand, he pressed sandalwood to make a whole pot of sandalwood oil. A whole clay pot of sandalwood oil, handmade sandalwood oil. And he gave it to Lord Chaitanya's servant, and he requested his servant, give it to Lord Chaitanya, and I'm going to come back and check with you to see if he's used it. And Lord Chaitanya isn't going to use sandalwood oil. Sorry, you don't use sandalwood oil. So it sat there in a corner, and Jagatananda regularly would ask his servant, did he use it? Not yet. So one day, this painting is showing, he came charging in, he grabbed the sandalwood oil and smashed it on the ground. And the sandalwood oil went flying in all directions. It's a transcendental, loving mood that's not normal, because that's Jagatananda. He had this relationship with Lord Chaitanya like that. He gave his mercy to Jagatananda, but in a different way. Another nice pastime where Lord Chaitanya gives his mercy. There, every year when the devotees would come from the northern part, primarily from Bengal, to go to Puri, they would bring items, cooked items. And especially was the husband and wife couple, Raghava Pandit and his good wife Damayanti. And they brought many, too many items, so many, that she very carefully prepared. There's like pages and pages of description of what she prepared and how she prepared it, so it wouldn't go bad, and put it in bags. And then Lord Chaitanya's servant said, people are asking, did you eat? Did he eat? Did he like it? You know. So Lord Chaitanya finally one day said, bring everything, I'll eat everything. And he ate everything, except the bags of Raghava Pandit. And then he decided he would eat a little bit every day, little bit every day, little bit every day. Raghavera Jali, the bags of Raghava Pandit, celebrated pastime. So he gave his mercy to Damayanti and Raghava Pandit in that way. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya had had a daughter, and the daughter was married to this young fellow named Amoga. And Amoga made the mistake of criticizing Lord Chaitanya. There's details. And because of his criticizing Lord Chaitanya, he contracted cholera. And Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya was more upset with him that you're criticizing Lord Chaitanya than that you had cholera. But he was also concerned because his daughter was going to become a widow. So what to do? News came to Lord Chaitanya. Lord Chaitanya came to his room. Cholera is very contagious. He placed his hand on his chest and said, Amoga, within your heart is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but your heart has become impure because of criticizing Vaishnavas. So give up this criticism tendency and you'll be cured. So it was another miracle cure. The offender, he didn't take offense to the offender. He cured his disease and revived his dormant Krishna prema. Of course, Amoga became very grateful, but he became also a great devotee, as was his father-in-law, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. There's all these nice stories and how to tell them all. There was a devotee of Lord Chaitanya who was very good at singing. There's the Haridas Thakur. He was known as Haridas Senior. Then there's Haridas Junior, Chota Haridas. And he would sing very, very, very beautifully. Anyway, without the whole history, he ended up Chota Haridas because of misbehavior. Lord Chaitanya said that Chota Haridas should not come to see him again. He was very strict as a sannyasi. There's details. Chota Haridas gave up his life, and everyone was very sad because he gave up his life. But then the painting is showing that although he gave up his life, he came regularly to the seashore where Lord Chaitanya would go in the evening, and Chota Haridas would sing for him. So he was appreciating the bhakti of Chota Haridas, even though there was this difficulty. Almost done. Nice painting, and the history behind the painting is every year the devotees, several hundred devotees would travel from Bengal to go to Puri for attending Rath Yatra. Now, I don't know if you've organized something for several hundred people, but it's not easy. There wasn't a train, there wasn't accommodation, there wasn't, make your reservation at such and such hotel, and it wasn't like that. So one devotee, who is pictured here on the far right paying his obeisances, Shivananda Sain. He was a very elder and responsible and respected Brahmana. He made all the arrangement for several hundred people to take the journey. It took several weeks by foot, their meals, their accommodation, the river crossing, dealing with one government people, another group of government people, paying taxes, and all of their practical necessities every year, going up and then going back, going up and coming back. So one time he, in the course of taking care of everybody's meals, there was a stray dog. Now, in America, there are not too many stray dogs, but in India, there's quite a few. Like a street dog. No, a homeless street dog. So he kind of adopted the homeless street dog and made sure that the dog got his meal every day, too, along with everybody else. He's just part of the group that was traveling from Bengal to Puri. One evening, when it was time for everybody's meal, they couldn't find the dog to feed him. So he sent 10 men going in all directions, see if he can find the dog. They couldn't find the dog anywhere, so he felt very badly. Something happened. The dog didn't get his meal. The painting shows when he came to Puri, lo and behold, there in the lower right corner of the painting is the dog, the same street dog. And not only there was the dog, but there's Lord Chaitanya commanding the dog to chant. Now, I can't imitate a dog chanting Hare Krishna too well, but he would say, chant Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. And then Lord Chaitanya threw some coconut pulp, and he caught the coconut pulp and was chewing the coconut pulp. And then he'd say it again, and dog would say Hare Krishna again, throw some coconut pulp. And when Shivananda Sain came to pay his respect to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he saw the scene. He not only paid his obeisances to Lord Chaitanya, he paid his obeisances to the dog, because he's a recipient of Lord Chaitanya's mercy. So that's nice, etc. So let's go back to the pranam mantra. Do I need to show it on the screen, or you all know the Namo Mahabhadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namane Koratushe Namaha, so you know. So he was very kind, very merciful to one and all, in very colorful, attractive, charming, creative ways. He gave his mercy, even to a dog, even to an offender, even to anybody. Now, the most, one might say the most merciful person is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the mercifulness, one could also say it's due to the influence of Srimati Radharani, because he's in the mood of Srimati Radharani. And this is supposed to show a nice way of Lord Chaitanya. No, it's not going to do it. Anyway, the painting is this supposed to be some movement, and Lord Chaitanya is going to turn his head, and he becomes Radharani. He turns his head the other way, he becomes Lord Chaitanya. But it's not cooperating. He carries the compassion of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the compassion of Radharani, who is the most merciful of all. So it's a toss-up, Lord Chaitanya and Radharani, but one entity. So there's a quick overview of some of the nice features of Lord Chaitanya's merciful nature. See if there's some discussion.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you very much. It's a very sweet and sublime kindness shared today with us. Thank you so much for that. I have two questions, Maharaj. One is related to the pastime of Jagai Madhai. On one hand, compared to the pastime with Chota Haridas on the other. In one case, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is very kind and merciful to the most fallen, and on the other hand, he is very strict with Chota Haridas. So, what as a devotee should we draw the lesson from this two compare and contrast situations?
He gave his mercy to Chota Haridas in a unique way. And the unique way was after Chota Haridas event took place, it's described in Chaitanya Charitamrita, even in their minds, the Vaishnavas would not do mischief or contemplate mischief because they're devoted to Lord Chaitanya and he's very strict. So no mischief. It was purposeful to chasten those who are devotees to be not deviant from the path of devotion. And on the other hand, he gave special mercy to Chota Haridas in that the service of his singing continued, just not visible to everybody else. So it looked like harsh, but actually it was merciful to everybody and merciful to Chota Haridas. So there are different flavors or varieties of how compassion may play itself out or mercy may play itself out.
Thank you, Maharaj. The second question is more related to the two paintings that were shared in the PowerPoint presentation. And one was where Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya is actually sitting on a lower seat than Chaitanya Mahaprabhu.
Yeah.
And I could have misunderstood it, but apparently when actually he was giving his purport on the Vedanta Sutra.
Yes, yes.
So my question is, is there a significance to that?
Yes. He's a sannyasi and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's, Mahaprabhu's a sannyasi and he's a grahastha. So although he's a teacher, he's giving teachings to a student, he's respecting the student as a sannyasi. He didn't have realization of his divinity. He just he's renunciate, and I'm a grahastha. So I offer respect to the sannyasi, although I'm a teacher and I'm instructing him.
Thank you so much.
It's an etiquette question, a social etiquette question.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you very much. It was very nice, small stories, very good glimpse, motivating me to read more about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Question came in my mind as you were saying, and it's going on the same line, how to understand his personality as a contrast, where one side he is not wanting to associate with worldly person like king, on the other side he is associating with, like you said, dog and giving his mercy. So how do we understand on
one of the characteristics, there are 64 qualities of Krishna. One of them is clever. And the description of clever is, by one thing, he's accomplishing many things. So it's not just one thing, there's many things he's accomplishing by that seemingly contradictory behavior. He, as a sannyasi, was very strict. This, that, the other. He wouldn't sit alone with a woman, and this and that and the other thing and the other thing. Very strict. But proper, according to the sannyas dharma. And because there may be a tendency, we might even say there was a tendency for persons who renounced to try to get favors from a highly placed person, a wealthy person or a kingly person or a well-positioned person, to get favors from them. And so he wanted to teach, don't do that. Strict. Don't do things they may compromise your position as a sannyasi. No, he gave his associate, when giving association to people, worldly people, he was giving his association. But, when it was a voluntary, because the king was requesting a personal darshan, he was showing an example. A sannyasi doesn't compromise. So he was putting up some barrier to demonstrate for other sannyasis amongst his followers and in the future, be very cautious or be strict with those with whom you intimately associate. At the same time, he orchestrated a pastime where not only they had association, but there he is massaging his feet and reciting verses from the 10th canto Bhagavatam, the Gopi Gita section of the Bhagavatam, very confidential, through the medium of one of his devotees, and embraced him. So he gave his mercy, but in a way that was, lesson teaching for a particular social purpose of his time and his followers. Yet he would, he freely give his amoga. He's an offender, a blasphemer, and contracted a big disease because of it. So yeah. The broad stroke is a pastime, and within a pastime there's multiple purposes. And so one can look at this purpose or that purpose or another purpose or a combination of purposes and put the tapestry together, and you got his pastime. He's teaching the access to love for Krishna through the chanting of the holy name, but being a chanter of the holy name doesn't give one license to do anything one likes. Ashram specific, then one should be very particular. And since he had accepted the sannyas ashram, he was very particular.
Thank you, Maharaj.
A real nice example of this, the loving exchange that he had with Jagatananda Pandit. Jagatananda would say, Jagatananda wants me to be a sense gratifier. what, but I'm not, I'm a sannyasi. He always get these nice things and wants me to enjoy nice things. And I can't enjoy nice things. I'm a sannyasi, strict. So sometimes he would then chastise Jagatananda. He'd send him away. But then he would give him some nice service. On a regular basis, you go to Mayapur and give association to Mother Sachi. And she'll want to know, how's he doing? What are his activities? And you share all that with him. You do that as a service, an intimate service to me. So there was affection, but he had affection with boundaries for instruction purposes. But without exception, Jagatananda would want to bring nice things. It was just part of their relationship, the loving exchange. Something else? You have something? No. Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Yeah. I have generally hard time to understand this. How do we see this Amogha getting leprosy by offending Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu?
I don't follow what you're saying. Say it again.
So, I just want to understand this.
Understand what?
That Amogha, when he offended Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu.
Who did?
Amogha, his son.
Okay.
Son-in-law. Yeah. And then he got leprosy.
It's Amogha.
Amogha, yes.
Amogha.
Yeah. So is it like a punishment that he got?
He made an offense. It's Maha Aparad. He got a reaction from Maha Aparad. So don't make Aparad, don't make Maha Aparad. Yes, it's a reaction. Now, it's not necessarily going to happen to the next person. If they make an offense, they're going to get some serious disease. But something as a consequence for offense. Does that answer your question?
Maharaj, I had three small questions. Like in same line like Sapna Mataji asked. So Ramananda Raya is also in government service, he's governor. But Lord Chaitanya embraces him and he meets very lovingly. But then he just doesn't want to see Pratavrata king.
It's a pastime to increase the hankering of the king. It's not that Mahaprabhu didn't see his quality. He's omniscient, so he knew his quality. At the same time, having obstacles in the course of meeting is sometimes, beneficial, even pleasurable. So it was increasing the intensity of his desire for association that then made it this very wonderful arrangement. So it's a pastime. Mm-hmm. That's the whitewash. It's a pastime of loving exchange, where with one he's making himself accessible, and with another he's making himself not accessible. For a purpose, but King Prataparudra.
Yes.
Yeah.
So in that was very endearing pastime, Jagatananda Pandit, throwing that pot. I was just thinking, in loving relationships, is there a place for familiarity?
Yeah, I mean, it's but the familiarity doesn't become disrespect. Familiarity in loving exchange is natural, but never to the point where it can become disrespectful. I mean, here's another nice pastime. Another nice pastime was Jagatananda wanted to visit Vrindavan. He got Lord Chaitanya's permission to visit Vrindavan. So he went to Vrindavan. And when he was in Vrindavan, he was cooking. And when he was cooking, he saw that Sanatana Goswami was wearing a particular turban on his head. And he asked, "Where'd you get that turban?" Thinking that it's a gift that he's just wearing because it was a gift given to him by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And when Sanatana Goswami said it was not that it wasn't a gift from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, but it was from somebody who was a sannyasi that's not in Lord Chaitanya's followers. While he was cooking, he took the frying pan, was ready to smash Sanatana Goswami on the head. How can you wear a turban that's not given to you by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu? He stopped midway, didn't smash him. But Sanatana Goswami was like so appreciative. You have such love. You're ready to hit a superior. That's not, in the mind of loving reciprocation with Lord Chaitanya. You have such love for him. If only I had such love for him as you have. And then Jagatananda caught himself and was embarrassed. Because it's just, impulsive. But the impulse of love. He's so attached to Lord Chaitanya. He can't bear the thought of an elevated devotee of Lord Chaitanya wearing something that wasn't given to him by Lord Chaitanya, but by some other fellow. No. It's love. Love. That he has that kind of love.
So from that part throwing pastime, Maharaj, like we are still in sadhana stage, so what is our learning from that mood?
I don't get it.
Means that mood of familiarity that he had. You mentioned relationship. Jagadananda Pandit.
It's not exactly familiarity. It's love. He had a particular kind of love. That's, one of a kind.
So we should just appreciate it.
Yeah.
Right.
It's not, you're using the word familiarity, but that's not really what it is.
Yeah.
It's just a profound type of love. It's almost like a conjugal love, a lover and beloved.
Yes.
And the exchange when the beloved wants their lover to do something and they're not doing what they're something, so he just throws a little fit.
Yes. Last question. So Maharaj, you mentioned that Jagai Madhai's mood completely changed when they got the mercy of Lord Chaitanya.
Yeah, completely.
So I'm just thinking like how this contrast happens. Like we are trying so much to become humble and but still it's so. What is that mercy? I mean, what happens to?
There's nice poems about the gentle fall of the rain of mercy upon my head, and it's not a cause and effect kind of thing. It's not a mechanical. You do this and you get that. It's it's a kindness that just may descend. Now, there are things that you and I and all of us can do to increase humility, and that's, take a look at reality. We're really tiny, quite insignificant. And there are different passages and prayers and messages and experiences reflections to introspect, and how tiny are we? So what's there to be the opposite of humble? To be proud. And it's an instruction again and again and again and again and again in Scripture. become free from pride. So you cultivate it, act in a mood of just being the servant of the servant of the servant. You cultivate that, and it grows. The mood of humility grows. There may be things that agitate it and prompt, pride or anger or something, but it's a mood that's very, very natural for the soul. You cultivate it. Okay. So I think we'll end. Thank you very much. Oh, you have something? Oh, really? Two things. Who gave her the microphone? Wait a minute.
When we are talking about Jagai Madhai, so two things came in my mind, if it is correct or not. One is previous karmas. Does that play a role? Because if they have done very good karmas and now in this position they are trapped, so they got mercy quickly. And then second one is complete surrender. When they surrender, then it's complete surrender. It's not like halfway, I'm thinking, I'm moving, I'm progressing slowly, like, we are thinking.
We do, yeah. So, you're making a statement. I'm not sure what your question is. Can you articulate the question so I can respond to the question, or just appreciate your reflection?
I wanted you to, it just reflection, you can say, came in my mind. Is that correct understanding? That's my question.
So we're looking at two different models of how mercy might come. One is you cultivate it, and the other is it comes suddenly. Is that the two contrasts? And is that a right way that how mercy can come this way or that way? Is that what the question is?
I'm thinking when we see from our side, it suddenly mercy came to some, even demons when Krishna was there, like Putana. So why? Is it because then it's complete surrender they did in that time?
No.
Or why it happened?
Why it happened? But it happened because A and B. Krishna is merciful, and Putana came to do some service. Her service was wicked. She wanted to kill Krishna. But he overlooked the wickedness and accepted the service. The service of a mother. And that's Krishna. He doesn't need our approval or permission to be merciful. He saw the service and accepted the service and gave her mercy because of that coded with bad intention service. He accepted the service part and purified her because he's the supreme pure. Does that do it?
So I'm thinking, is it the similar way, like Jagai Madhai, they got the mercy, but was there service, was there complete surrender, or was there previous?
There were two brothers, and one was the wilder of the two. The one that was the wilder of the two is the one that hit Nityananda with the clay pot. But they were both degraded, sinful, drunkards, and bad, and in the sin category. But then the sin category is one thing, offense is another thing. Offense is far more serious spiritually than sin. Sin can be counteracted quickly by bhakti and by merciful devotee. So I'm still not sure what you're asking, but there are two different characters, but because one of the characters fell at Lord Chaitanya's feet, the other was like afraid for his life. He wasn't exactly repentant, but he was just like afraid for his life. So that that made them instantly less intoxicated, a little more sober. And this is it. This is the death penalty for that offense. then the appeal of part of the dynamic is the appeal of Lord Nityananda to Lord Chaitanya. In this age, you don't kill the demons; you correct their you kill their demoniac mentality. So he reminded him, "Yes, you're protecting me, but what about your mission in appearing in this world?" So that checked him. The chakra wasn't released. Now, supposing the chakra was released, they would then be liberated of all those sins. But even before they were freed from their sins by getting chopped, they surrendered. And by bhakti, they became freed from sin. But they didn't stop there. They were appealing to the Vaishnavas, please forgive us, please forgive us, please. So it was genuine to the core. It wasn't cosmetic. It wasn't circumstantial. So your question is full surrender. They surrendered to the mercy of Lord Chaitanya. And so that's a permanent change. Okay. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.